What I would like to start with, John, is tell us, I know you have an incredible spiritual background, and how has your spiritual journey actually shaped the creation of Mars, Venus, and how came the metaphor of Mars and Venus as two cosmic frequencies? How did this come about? I have never heard how you really created the idea for this.
Well, my spiritual background didn't really tell me about the gender differences so much as actually prepared me. I grew up in a family with 6 boys and 1 girl, and I was the 5th boy. So I think my mother was hoping I'd be a girl. And my mother and I were very, very close, we'll put it that way. And she kind of like protected me from my brothers who were always jealous of me. And later in life, when I was very successful, my brothers were complaining about their lives, and they said, well, you're successful because mom loved you more. And I said, that's ridiculous. I'm not aware of that at all. And we asked her, and she said to them, oh, I've done everything to love all my 7 children. I tried everything to love you equally. I love you all so, so much. It's just Johnny, he makes you love him more. So whatever it might be. And I think I had more of a spiritual sense to me. And the spiritual connection actually is, in me, it comes from my female side. And so I was a happy kid, a sensitive kid, a shy kid, and all of that. And loved women, loved girls. Sex as a teenager was fantastic. I always felt comfortable with them. But then my soul, to find balance, I became a monk. As a monk, it was like I'd gone so far to my female side, but I was truly loved by the female. There's a place where males get close to their mothers, but their mothers aren't happy. And so then they end up trying to make mother happy, and they never can. And so they end up having a lot of psychological problems. My gift was that I could be close to my mother, and she just adored me and loved me, but she was a happy woman. There was never any neediness there, no clinginess or no demand for me to be a certain way. So I got a really good kind of love from my mother. And then I had a really great role model in the Maharishi of Transcendental Meditation, of a man who was, at least when I was with him, he was a beautiful balance of masculine and feminine energy. And by feminine energy, I mean, he was happy, he was loving, he was generous, he was playful. He was creative. These are all of our feminine qualities. And then the masculine side is, he'd been a monk himself. He was very disciplined, hardworking, selfless, wanting to help the world. And so being in that midst of him being sort of the playful one, but not indulging so much time with me, because I would spend, 15 hours a day meditating. I would take silence. I would eat a bowl of food a day. I was pure celibate. To be pure celibate is to be extremely masculine. You see, if it's by choice, okay. A lot of guys don't have relationships, but they're masturbating to porn. That's the worst, weakening the soul. But truly, I never masturbated in my 20s. It was always taking that energy through spiritual practice and discipline. But what that did, he inspired me as a role model to go to my male side and learn. And I didn't have the language at that time of male and female, but after 9 years of that, my brother was bipolar, and meditation didn't solve it for him. So I kind of hit a place where I was no longer feeling the need for a spiritual teacher, but at the same time, my brother needed me. So I stopped being a monk. I went out to California to study psychology to help my brother, thinking psychology might help. And in that process, started having sex. It was like the greatest thing in the world. I felt like Don Juan. I went around studying women, what made women happy in sex. I would tell them the truth. I'm just making up for lost time here. and so I said, I completely went from my male side back to my female side. Because see, when men are wanting sex, they're depending on a woman to be happier. That whenever you're depending on anything to be happier, you're on your female side. So now I was like reawakening this sexual identity, and wanted to learn about sex, because it was a dilemma inside of me. Because when I would ejaculate, all of my spiritual experience evaporated. I still knew my oneness with the universe, my oneness with God. I had my experiences with me, but sex depleted me of the ejaculation, depleted me of the juice that allowed me to stay in these meditative trances and these really Yogananda-like experiences of traveling the universe and bliss for hours. And, people say, how can you meditate for 15 hours? I could say, if you could imagine having sex for 15 hours, basically the same thing.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So that's sort of the foundation. So here I am, this rather enlightened type guy, and I'm now coming into the female world, but not understanding women at all. And so the first thing I wanted to learn about women was what made them happy in sex. And I didn't know any of this stuff. Back in those days, we didn't have sex education. There weren't a lot of books on sex and whatever. So I was traveling around interviewing women on what made them happy in sex and providing that for them and learning. And I thought this was such helpful information, and most men didn't have it. So those were my first workshops I taught, which was on, how to have spiritual sex, how to have enlightened sex, which is, at that time I was teaching for men how to have orgasms without ejaculating. If you haven't ejaculated for 9 years, it's pretty easy to have orgasms without ejaculating. But, if a guy's masturbating all the time, he's in a habit of releasing the energy. And so I taught those for a while. It was a bit too advanced for people at that time. But I realized that sex was really nothing, and it wouldn't last if you didn't also have love. And so I slowly shifted within a year from just focusing on sex to love. And what breaks down love is communication. You need better communication. And then I was married to Bonnie, and the gift that meditation gave me, which is the saving grace of our relationship, was that when, couples get upset with each other, anytime I was upset, I had the good sense. I had a place I could go to feel good that had nothing, that would not bring my energy down, but would bring it up. I could go meditate. And in meditation, it's really what the Buddha taught, which was you forget all your problems. If you can forget your problems, there's no blame, there's no negativity. See, all negative emotions, hurt and all that, it's all blame. And you're focusing on a problem and depending on that to change in order to feel better. But I can go to meditation and forget all my problems and be very happy. It's literally like what meditation did for me. It's like the sun just came out where I am right now. And the sun is always shining, but there's clouds in front of it. And meditation helped me to remove the clouds so the sun shines again. And then what I would do is when the sun would shine again, I would reflect on what happened that upset me, bothered me, closed my heart. And I would focus on how did I contribute to that. I'd also look at what was her mistakes, how she could have done it better, and how I could do it better, so it doesn't happen again, more understanding of the situation. But I committed myself to never telling her what she did that was wrong, because that would come across as criticism and hard for her to hear. I just focused on how I could change myself. And if everybody could do that, they would have a much better life. If we just primarily focus, mind your own business. Look at, and it's not that you can't make your relationship better, but your first step is to make yourself better. And then from a better place, an open-hearted place, in a non-demanding way, ask for what you want. Okay, in a non-demanding way, ask for what you want in a not pushy way. So ultimately, my wife had the good fortune of being married to a man who never complained about her and always adored her and loved her until he didn't. And then he would stop talking. He would go meditate. And she called it, you do some magic. I don't know what you do, but you always come back out with more love. That's what's so important. You see, men, if they're in touch with their masculinity, they'll have a tendency to get really close and pull away, get really close and pull away. And at that time when he pulls away, that's not giving a woman what she needs at that time. She likes connection. Connection produces the female hormones. Men need disconnection to produce the male hormones. Now, the dance of life, well, we want to, I'm 70 years old, so I can do this. Rarely do I need cave time. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I just finished meditating 4 hours today. So that's also cave time. But the need to pull away from my partner is much less because I'm able to sustain my testosterone levels while I'm very intimate with her. Intimacy is estrogen, and being selfless is testosterone. So having both those at the same time, but that that takes a lot of maturity. So in the meantime, men will get close, their estrogen will go up and they'll feel really good, be really loving, nice towards you, and you'll feel really connected. But then they need to pull away. So ironically, if you have a really good relationship, a man's going to have time where he just pulls away and needs to ignore you. And that used to be normal because men would go to work, okay, and then they ignore their partner. And now we're working at home, or we're both working. It's women need to experience that connection. And what men have to learn are, well, first of all, she needs to understand men, that men pull away, but they come back. Each time they come back, if you don't go after them, they come back. And what men have to do when they pull away is learn how, when they pull away, to feel good and then reflect on how they can be a better person. So he doesn't know how to be a better person if nobody doesn't teach him. It's like, this is where Mars Venus behavior comes in, which is men learning what their mistakes are. As simple as a wife's upset and you tell her you shouldn't be upset. Yeah. You just made a gold mistake. Just as simple as that. Why are you upset? You shouldn't be upset. Or she complains at you. You complain too much. You feel annoyed with her. Oh, stop talking. Big mistake. Now she's going to talk more or never talk to you again. We make without understanding women, very foolish mistakes in a relationship. Likewise, women make just as many foolish mistakes. A guy is pulling away, he's quiet. She says, "What are you feeling?" Never ask a man what he's feeling when he becomes quiet. But you feel insecure. You're afraid. Does he love me? Does he not love me? Did I say something wrong? What's the matter? So what you can do, you want that connection, is to get connection with a man anytime he pulls away. You say, right in the middle of a conversation, men will sort of withdraw. And women will go, "What's going on? What are you feeling? What's going on?" Instead, you just say, "You're thinking about what I just said, right?" He'll go, "Yeah." Done. Create a space where he's successful and he'll say yes. And as soon as, whenever you say yes, there's a connection. Mm. So connection is so important to women, and more important today than ever before, because women are more independent, and independent is detachment. I got to do it myself. I'm not depending on anybody else. I'm doing it myself. That's independence. And that's a great thing. Women on their male side. So their need for connection is even greater than it's ever been. That's why there were, back when I wrote Men Are From Mars, at least, there were all these books on communication, and women were saying, men don't listen. And, one of the ideas of Men Are From Mars was, men, just stop talking. That's what it means. When women say, you don't listen, stop talking, ask questions, help me understand that better. Tell me more, what else? And try to walk in her shoes, so to speak. Just, that's what's going to solve the problem. Because the problem today, you can boil it all down, and it is simplistic, and this life is more complicated, but you have to have a simple approach if you're going to do anything about it. Women need men today to help women come back to their female side. Yes. Men require women to teach us how to do that in a way that doesn't sound like we're stupid or it doesn't sound like you're controlling us.
Yeah. So, I would like to move now a little bit to the actual theme of our call. And
let me just quickly answer your question.
Yeah, okay.
So here I am. I'm teaching the whole idea that men and women are different. It was so politically incorrect. And many people were loving it, but even back then there was a little bit of this ridiculous cancel culture. People would come in signs and disrupt my talks. It would just be unhappy women and sometimes unhappy men coming and blaming me for their problems. So these people would be disruptive. And I thought, how can I make this really playful and light? How can there's something missing here. There's something missing, because I was just talking about men and women being different. And I happened to be taking a course in astrology at the time, where we were in astrology, you have to learn the properties of the different planets. And my wife, Bonnie, she was Venus and I was Mars. It just felt right. And, Mars is the masculine planet and Venus is the feminine planet. So we were doing that, and it didn't strike me at that point. But then the next day I was giving a talk, and I just seen that movie E.T. Everybody remembers back in 1984, 83, the movie E.T. So I wanted to make a point to the women in the audience. I said, now women, just imagine your husband's E.T. Now my point was that in E.T., you get this little person from another planet. He likes chocolate, and she's telling her kids, don't give him chocolate. That's not good. But for him on his planet, that's what's good. And so you have to understand what might be good for you is not necessarily good for him. It's a complicated idea. But I started out by just saying, so women, just imagine your husband's ET. And then they all started laughing completely. It was like, and then some woman in the audience, it sounded like she was drunk. She said, well, where's my husband from? And I said, Mars, of course. And everybody laughed and laughed and laughed. And I got chills on the hair stood up on my arm. And I said, thank you, God. This is it. Men are from Mars. That's the way I can start teaching this idea. So it was a way to lighten the subject. But the subject of gender differences was, a couple of years I've been teaching it, and it was very, very helpful as a therapist to explain to women how they misunderstand him, and explain to men how you're misunderstanding what your wife is really saying here. And as a translator from two different planets, I could help couples so quickly and so helpful. And it was so helpful to them. It doesn't solve all problems, but it does improve the communication so that you can together solve your own unique problems.